sick and hurting and tired.
Feeling
and,
helpless.
Yeah, and that's something I was always, ate up with ADD. So I'd work 10, 11 hours, come home and clean, scrub the baseboards with the toothbrush. And now
Wow.
I can't do anything, or I felt like I couldn't. And so
did your mind still, because the ADD, ADHD
Yeah.
thing, mind still wanted to do it, but your body was just saying, I can't do it?
Yes, and that's so frustrating because I don't know if I've always had like some kind of sickness that I thought that I could do anything or that I was untouchable or so. And so there would be times, and anybody who knows me knows this to be true, but I mean, I don't know, like remodeling. I'm big on decorating or remodeling houses or whatever. And so I remember this one time, my oldest, we were at the house and I was like, it's too dark in here. And so I started tearing down a wall. And I tore down the whole...
That's scary. And you're good at it.
Yeah, so I tore down the whole wall and I took a new, front door and remodeled it. And so that's just how I roll. And
that's amazing to me.
So it was hard. It was hard for me to want to do something and not be able to learn my new limitations. And
well, you were having to... I know you didn't think about all of this probably at the time, but you were literally having to redefine your identity.
That was a huge thing because at work, I never realized until I had a lot of alone time. But like I said previously, my self-worth, I guess esteem, everything was wrapped up in my job. And it wasn't, I don't know if it was the title or it was just me feeling good at something. And so...
Well, and people needed you. You were in serving students with a goal and a mission, and they depended on you. Your employees depended on you. I think anybody, especially an extrovert, is going to be get fulfilled by that.
Yeah, I fed off of it. And so that was extremely hard for me because then it was like, well, you're sitting here and what's my purpose? Shortly after I got home, my oldest daughter turned 18 and moved. And so it was just, what is my purpose now? My kids are older. They don't need me like that.
Empty nest.
Yes.
Shifting.
Yeah. Everything was shifting and I didn't have control over anything. And I really didn't like that. Oh. That was a hard pill to swallow.
And I think that's hard for anybody to swallow, but given some of the similarities we have in our childhoods, being out of control really doesn't feel comfortable.
No.
And so here you're getting it literally smacked in your face, and new identity, and it's not one you chose. No. It was choosing you.
And there's nothing I can do about it. And the way that I had to leave, that was hard for work because, if you feel like you leave on top or if you feel like you left on good terms or that you did all that you could do type thing. But there was so much more, like in my particular job, there were so many things that I don't want to say that was done wrong, but I felt like there was so many things that I wanted to make right. There were so many things I wanted to do differently. There were so many things that I now saw that I wanted to change, and I never had that opportunity. And so it was so abrupt of
grief process.
It was
big
so
time.
abrupt that, go pack your stuff. Well, what do you mean go pack? I still have emails that I need to return. No, you can't even turn the computer on. Get a box, pack your stuff, and leave, and it's like, but I need closure. I need to be able to do this stuff. I don't need to, to feel like the failure. That was even hard, not harder, but it was just compelled the issue of making it so much worse that not only do you have to leave, but not leaving on the best terms. And that was really hard for me because I've always, I don't want to sound, not that I was always been good, but I've always taken pride in my jobs and I've always tried
really good.
to do a good job. And so for me to feel
your heart was always in it.
Yes, I always gave 110%. And so to not be able to do that and to kind of leave things dangling, that was hard for me. That was really hard. It took a hit. And navigating the medical system, I'll touch on that later, but that's really, really hard, because when you're a healthy person, you go to the doctor for a cold, or, you can go and say, okay, doc, my throat's sore, and they check your ears and your nose and your throat, and you say you have a cough, and they actually believe you, and they're like, oh, you have a cough, let me give
Or they do their little checks and they figure out, hey, yes, there's evidence of this, therefore.
Let me give you some cough syrup and make you feel better, and I'm so sorry, and that was it. And that's not the way it is when you're chronically ill. That no longer takes.
So the chronic part is what makes it different, or the fact that you can't see it, hard to diagnose? What made that different than me walking into the doctor and saying, hey, I've got a UTI, give me an antibiotic?
I don't know. I don't know exactly why it's so different. It just is. I think some of it has to do with not being able to see. There's still a lot of people out there that think fibromyalgia is fake, or it's just in your head, or, you can't see chronic pain. You can't see chronic fatigue. You can't see a lot of the things that people go through. And unless you actually live with a person, or you see it day in and day out, if you see me going into the store, I look like everyone else. And so no one can see that. And
the invisible illnesses.
Yeah, the invisible illnesses. And unless you truly are really close to that person and you know the truth, there's pros and cons for people not to be able to see it. If someone has a cast, or, a visible disability, then people are a lot more caring or empathetic or things like that nature. And then when you can't see it, people are pretty judgmental. And that even goes, like, I refuse to go to the ER, man. I will be on my deathbed before I go.
Really?
Yeah, I hate it. Hate it with a passion.
Not just the waiting, but the way you're treated?
Oh, it's the way that you're treated. Because, especially if you're on any kind of pain medicine.
Oh, Lord.
Then immediately, you're just looked at.
You're suspect, yeah.
Yeah. And there's been times where I've been in the hospital and I'm a hard stick. And so I remember being in the hospital, and this nurse got so mad that my IVs kept blowing and she couldn't get it started. And so she stuck me and had the IV sticking out, and she got mad and left the room and just left it hanging there. And I had to wait for another nurse to come in and finish my IV over an hour later. Or just,
an hour?
Yeah, different things. There's one time I went to the ER. Oh, that was horrible. Horrible pain. And the medication sent me there on that one. But I went and...
Meaning the medication caused the pain?
Meaning I was on infusions and injections. Mm-hmm. And I was on it for over a year. And then it happens like this. Like, my husband went camping and I was fine. I was like, I'm okay, go camping. And then it was that same night, like around 1 o'clock, I called my youngest daughter and her husband, and I said, I'm going to need some help. I've been on the toilet, TMI, but I was on the toilet for hours and I could no longer get up. And so I had so much pain.
You happen to have your phone there, thank goodness.
Yeah, and I had so much pain. I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew something. And so, and that takes a lot for me to say, call the ambulance.
Yes.
And so then they came. Well, then they were like, well, can't you get up? I can't. And then I kind of fell on the floor. They got a sheet, and then you're humiliated, already there with the guys getting you. They get you in, or they got me in a roller chair and then got me outside. Well, then it was so cold, and I only had my little nightgown on. Ugh. And then I was vomiting all over the place. I felt
from the pain?
I don't know. I was just vomiting, and I felt like I was going to use the restroom. I had no control over, any of it. Mm-hmm. I go to the emergency room, and they couldn't start an IV. I was a hard stick because of the, I don't know if, I've always been a hard stick, but the infusions made it worse.
Okay.
Well, at that time it was, nighttime. It was in the middle of the night. And I sat there, I think, for 12 hours before somebody came in the next shift that could get an IV started. So just sat there in pain.
And nobody's rushing around to make sure that you get out of that pain.
Oh, no.
In fact, trying to convince them that you even need anything to begin with, because in their minds, they're making sure you're not just a junkie.
Oh, yeah, because as soon as they find out that you're on any kind of pain medication, then they automatically assume that that's why you're here. Or at that point, I was having major stomach issues, and so it wasn't pleasant for anybody. And so then when you have uncontrollable and people having to come clean you and wipe you and you have to wear a diaper, and I mean, it's just, there's a no-win situation, and you feel bad for the people,
Well, you would. You're so empathic.
I'm like, oh God. And that particular hospital stay, I was there for a week, and they said that I almost lost my colon, and the only thing that we could bring it back to, they stopped all my medicine because they said that it was probably the medicine that did it. So then it's like, okay, do you take the medicine that will hopefully stop your lupus from attacking your organs and your tissues and your muscles and all of that, or do you take the medicine that you're going to end up with a shit bag?
And temporarily or permanently?
Yeah, what's better for you? And that's that particular thing. I can honestly say that was the worst, I think, of all the hospital stays, and I was mad. I was actually mad that I didn't die. I mean, I was
miserable. You were miserable.
I was in a lot of pain, and I was humiliated and angry because at this point, that was only like maybe 2 years ago, or maybe even a year or two ago. But at this point, every day of your life being in pain and having to try to prove to everybody that you're really sick, it gets old.
Miserable. I just had a small experience, and no way can compare to this. But the last 6 months I've really dealt with, I was losing blood, was getting anemic, and finally, I had to go through 3 doctors. Now, that is in the Middle East, and some of the stuff that I had going on was due to Lyme's disease, and they don't even have ticks there. So they definitely didn't know what Lyme's was, and possibly cat scratch fever. They don't domesticate cats there. So, and I was going, I'm miserable, I'm tired, I'm sick, and I'm having to fight to get what I need to survive. And that was a small little example. I can't imagine what you feel and have felt fighting to get out of pain and having to choose which route you're going to go. And that's if you can find people who will explain and communicate it to you. Mm-hmm. I would imagine a lot of the time you have to do your own research.
Yeah, it is. It's extremely frustrating. It's frustrating because the doctors don't talk even. Like, this is just an example, but you'll have, several specialists. And so I have a rheumatologist, you'll have a neurologist, you'll have,
internist.
Yeah, internist, a pain specialist, all of that stuff. And the pain specialist, you have to go in, if you're lucky enough to find one. I've had several that just basically said that it was in my head and they aren't treating me, or they refuse to give me medicine, or, so if you're lucky enough to find one that will take you, then you have to go in once a month and you have to pee to make sure that you're not taking anything you're not supposed to, or selling it in the black market or what, I wouldn't know.
So even going to the pain specialist monthly is to go prove to them that you should be going to them.
Yeah, that you're still in pain, yeah. And
wow.
And I went...
Guilty until proven innocent.
Oh, definitely. And what people don't realize is even if everything goes right, even if everything goes right and you find a doctor who actually believes you, gives you the medication for